This is the final video of section 4 on building the arena. In this video, we're going to use the methods we created in the earlier section to determine the winner. First, like always, we're going to write a small spec to figure out what the method has to do, and to verify that it works as intended. After writing the spec, we're going to implement the method until it passes the tests. Lastly, we'll save the match results to storage so we can show the match list in our app later. Let's open up our arena test file. We'll create a new test suite for determining a winner. Since we want to test with real data, let's copy over the before each block in the previous suite. That's going to make our life a lot easier. In this suite, we're going to have two tests. One that checks for a winner in a non-equal matchup, and one to make sure there's a draw outcome when the matchup is equal. So let's go ahead and create that test. It should determine a draw if the matchup is equal. Let's determine the outcome of the first test by choosing the alligator for ourselves. We'll fight against the rhino, and as a terrain we're going to use the swamp. Since our alligator is more at home in swampy areas, we should win from the rhino in this matchup. So this outcome should equal player. For the draw, we'll pitch two rhinos against each other, again in the swamp. This time the outcome should obviously be a draw. Now that we've got our test set up, let's go back to the source file for the arena service and create a new method called determineWinner. Before we start determining the winner, we'll need to adjust an algorithm, namely the terrain influence one. The one we set up in the last video needs some more tweaking, so let's change it up here, which will make our results more predictable and realistic. So we're going to multiply the animal stats with the terrain stats and then divide it by 10. This method takes three arguments, which are in order the player's animal, the opponent's animal, and then finally the terrain on which the map will be played. We'll use our methods we created earlier to calculate the animal scores. Let's calculate the player score variable and the opponent score variable. So I'm just gonna copy paste it and then change it to opponent. Let's also create an outcome variable that will hold the outcome of the match. First of all, if the player score is equal to the opponent's score, it's a draw. So we're going to check for that first and then set the outcome. If it's not, we're going to check if the player's score is higher than the opponent's score. If it is, the player will have won, and otherwise the opponent wins the match. And then finally, just return the outcome. Let's run our tests to make sure it works as intended. Alright, looks good. Let's move on to storing the match result. First of all, we're going to need to load the previously played matches. To do so, we'll inject our storage service we created earlier and then simply load the matches key, or if it doesn't exist, default to an empty array. Next, we'll add an entry to the played matches by pushing an object into the array. This object is going to contain the player's animal ID, the opponent's animal ID, the terrain ID, and lastly, the outcome. We're going to store these so we can use them in the view later to show previous matches. Lastly, we're going to persist these played matches to our storage again, so just save it using the matches key again. Alright, that's it for the meaty part of the arena. What we've done so far is writing a test spec for determining the winner. We've actually implemented the method for determining who won the match. And finally, we've saved the matches to storage, which we can use later to display in the application. In the next video, we're going to hook up all this stuff to the controllers and views to create the application.